I definitely don't trust the government to commit violence ethically. That's for sure. My neighbor never killed a family of Afghanis, so I'd probably trust him way more with a machine gun than the U.S. government. Same with a drone. I've never drone bombed a wedding in Afghanistan, and killed tens of kids and women and children or whatever. So honestly, I feel like I should be trusted more with a Predator drone than the U.S. government, considering I have a better track record of not killing innocent civilians.
Welcome to the Tucson Bitcoin podcast. Today my guest is Suckboy Tony, and this dude is a legend in the 3D gun printing space because he is working on revolutionizing the way that guns fundamentally work and doing it in a way that can be accessible to individuals all over the world that they could potentially build at home themselves. And this is, the 3D gun printing revolution is huge. Started in the US with a guy named Cody Wilson, creating a one-shot pistol called the Liberator, and has morphed into rebel groups in Myanmar, building out FGC-9s in factories so that they can defend themselves against a military takeover. And it's amazing, to watch this happen. And I think it's incredibly exciting what these people are doing. I don't find it controversial to empower individuals all over the world to be able to stand up for their rights and make tyranny more expensive. And I think this has a lot of overlap with Bitcoin in that regard, because that's what Bitcoin ultimately does. It makes it harder for the government to steal your wealth through inflation and through taxation and just blatant confiscation and censorship. And the guns allow for people all over the world that would potentially be victimized to protect themselves and make tyranny more expensive. And I think this is what this is about. I'm interested in empowering the individual, and I think the government is interested in the exact opposite. And we talk about that in this conversation. We talk about how the 3D gun printing revolution right now is going to potentially have a major impact on individuals all over the world, and how it already is. And yeah, Suckboy Tony is on the front lines of doing this. But yeah, I hope you enjoy this conversation. Awesome. Well, thanks for doing this, Tony. Stoked to talk.
Yeah, glad to be here.
So you're the first world champion of anything that I've had on the podcast.
Oh, that's I guess good to know. It's that was quite an interesting title. I guess world champion by default technically, but I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, what was it? The world champion of like the 100% printed category?
Yep, it was shooting competition at the Bear Arms and Bitcoin conference last year for 100%. I was the only person in the 100% category. It, I guess, kind of came second place in there was like a user what was it? It was like user's choice or something. But that went to Jeff Rod with the Liberator 12K, which he definitely deserves it. So, and there's no need for me to have 2 championships.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty dope. Like the first ever 3D gun printing competition.
Yeah.
Title.
Yep. Yeah, there was one too. I feel like there was one with a different group of people. I feel like Rob Pincus was organizing it or something, but there was another 3D printed gun shooting thing a couple months ago. Fortunately, I couldn't go to that, but it sounded pretty cool at least. I'm glad it's getting out there.
Yeah. No, it's huge. It's amazing how many people I stumble across that are in the 3D gun printing community. You just have all these people that are machinists or
honestly, I was sitting in class yesterday responding to somebody on Twitter, and the kid sitting next to me saw that I was typing on like a 3D printed post. He didn't know it was my post, but he's like, "Oh, you're into 3D printing guns?" I'm like, haha, yeah, are you? And he was showing me pictures of his lowers and stuff, which was pretty cool. I mean, he just pretty much just into the AR-15 lowers, but I'm still happy that it was just some random kid sitting next to me in class that's into it.
Yeah,
So it's definitely getting out there.
it's catching on. It's
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I'm kind of a moron. I haven't figured it out yet, but it's on my list of things to do.
Yeah, it's hard to get into, but once you start, you can just start cranking them out. It gets real easy. I think yeah, the hardest part is just that initial bump of getting into it, getting the printer set up, and finding the files, and then after that, it's really easy.
Yeah. So you guys at Atlas Arms are doing some pretty cool things with the Dagny Dagger and your uh, belt fed. I don't know what to call it, but it's
Ammo. All right. Well, I call it an ammo hose. The official name is the Haley hose.
cool.
So
Are you guys stumbling into any obstacles from a regulatory standpoint with the project?
yeah, there is there's some. I mean, obviously, this whole thing is kind of skirting regulation and trying to use like ammo and bullets that can pierce armor but aren't considered armor piercing materials. There's like a list of maybe like 10 metals that can't be used in pistol ammo. So it's kind of just trying to skirt that already. The big problem is some states regulate any ammo intended to penetrate armor. So that kind of, um, you can't really do anything with that. You can't change up the materials. And Texas, unfortunately, is one of those states. So not as gun friendly as some might think. And so that's kind of an issue. But I think there's also there's some stuff to get around that. Basically, just making standard ammo that's not designed to penetrate armor, but does have good penetration in like animals and stuff for like self-defense, wilderness stuff. If you come across a bear, ammo that's really good at taking down a bear can have multiple uses potentially, but it's not classified as armor piercing because it's meant to take down bears.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's yeah. I like to make fun of Texas a lot on their gun laws. So
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, yeah, I'm not a huge fan. It's I mean now I guess that they have constitutional carry, it's a little bit better, but yeah, definitely I like Arizona.
yeah, Arizona's where it's at. This
Yeah,
is like an ongoing feud that I have another show called Toxic Airwaves, and we like to pick fights with people from Texas.
nice. Yeah, I definitely appreciate that.
Yeah, it's yeah. One of the nice things about Arizona, though, is it's kind of like a well kept secret in a lot of.
Yeah, honestly, I didn't even know anything about it until I moved out here. I'm definitely glad I found it.
Yeah, me too. Um, but yeah, so I mean, you're kind of an iconic person in the 3D gun printing community. What drew you to guns in general in the first place?
So I mean, honestly, I would say my interest in guns probably started, I mean, real young with like video games, Call of Duty, Battlefield, all that. And then my parents are like super hippies, so they were anti-gun. And I remember in like middle school and high school, there were some break-ins in the neighborhood, and my parents were being real pussies about it. And so I'm like, well, shit, what am I gonna do if somebody breaks in? So I started out, I think I made like a crossbow from scratch, actually, just with like some wood that I had laying around and some surgical tubing, I think, and just random shit. That didn't really work too well. And then I got into potato guns, and that kind of like I spent a lot of high school just trying to make better potato guns, stuff that was at some point I had like a magazine fed potato gun. um it Hard to explain, but actually some concepts from that are going to be in the semi-auto variant of my next gun, so it's kind of interesting. It's all coming full circle. um but yeah, and just got really into potato guns in high school, and then after that, I was in the army for a bit doing like explosive stuff. So I mean, I really like blowing shit up. So that's always been kind of a hobby of mine. And then it kind of stay. I mean, I've owned a couple guns, and then it kind of stagnated um, until a couple years ago when I did an internship, and then got into 3D printing when a coworker that was an engineer said that there's no way you can get 3D printed guns to work. And so I started printing off magazines, and then tried printing a version of the Liberator, and that blew up on me. So then I wanted to make it better. Um, and then just once I decided I wanted to make it better, it just transformed from there. Um, Basically to where I'm at now, making electric caseless ammo. I'm just basically trying to make the best Liberator pistol, and the um, I guess, yeah, in the historical sense of the word, as like a pistol that can be distributed all throughout the public, and uh, cheap to make. I'm hoping I can get more. I mean, I have like 100 rounds through it. Right now, it is still like single shot, a musket, but there's definitely a lot of ways to make it semi-auto and way more useful. So yeah, basically just started from potato guns, and now I'm here.
So potato guns are like a gateway drug.
Yep. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I grew up in commie land, uh,
Oh,
where there was no guns, in just north of Chicago, and well, there were tons of guns, just not legally.
oh. Yeah, I grew up in Wisconsin, so pretty close to you actually. Um, but yeah, we had a lot more guns, obviously.
Wisconsin's a lot better on guns than Cook County, Illinois.
Oh yeah. Yep, that's for sure.
But yeah, it's always interesting. I like, I oftentimes wonder if people's enjoyment of firearms is something that's inherent to them. It seems like there's kind of like a predisposition towards different political philosophies. And I would imagine that's similar case for guns too, because like I was a similar kid where I just wanted my hands on like airsoft guns, paintball guns,
Uh,
anything like that.
Yep, yeah, exactly. I feel like, yeah, there's some probably like political, like if you're super on the left, you won't want to even get started in guns. But I feel like once, like a lot of people that I've taken out shooting, particularly like really liberal people, um, I know one kid actually who I did that same internship with, started out, he was like, "Oh, nobody's trying to take your guns, all that. Like, oh, we just need common sense gun control." Um, and I took him out shooting, and now he's got a ton of guns, and he's actually trying to get into like the 3D printed gun community and start like designing stuff. Um, so I'm really happy to see more people kind of on the left getting interested. And I feel like really the only barrier is getting them shooting so they can see how fun it is. And then from there, it's not really a political issue once they understand that it's fun and not like, I don't know, just all super white right wing guys like guns for to take. Well, I guess that is kind of the point of the Second Amendment. But anyway, it's I don't know. Yeah, I feel like people basically just need to go shooting and figure out how fun it is on their own.
Yeah, I've got a list of communist deprogramming techniques, and the first one is taking somebody shooting.
Oh, really? Yeah, that's definitely a good idea. That's the only thing I've found that actually helps change people's minds.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting like how easy it is to build up, this stigma towards something that you've never experienced before, and then once you experience it, it completely changes your perspective on it.
Yep, exactly.
But yeah, it's yeah, common sense gun laws are that term is very loaded. It's kind of
Yeah, hard to argue against too, without sounding like I don't know, super extremist. But yeah, it's uh, it's definitely something that annoys me because it's like, well, it might sound like common sense till you actually look into it, and then it's the stupidest fucking thing in the world.
yeah, I had Ragnar on my podcast, and I asked him some question pertaining to that, and he said, "Yeah, I believe in keeping guns out of the hands of the wrong people, and most of those people are in government. And I think that's like,
Honestly, yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, the biggest like gun runners that we have to worry about is our own government giving millions of dollars of machine guns and rockets to, the Taliban and cartels and stuff. Yeah, way more worried about that than a couple like FGC 9s that they have. I think the Stinger missiles pose a little bit more more of a threat.
isn't that bullshit?
Yeah. Yeah, especially in this political climate of, oh no, you guys aren't capable enough to have weapons of war, but oh yeah, the Taliban is. Don't worry.
Yeah,
Like no, fuck off.
I'm incredibly jealous of the Taliban.
Yeah, honestly, I heard a story of somebody trading a couple cans of dip for a technical. It was like a Toyota pickup truck with a Dishka 50 cal machine gun on the back, and I think it was a soldier traded for it so they can use it to defend the airbase. And I really just want to know. I mean, rightfully he bought it. I feel like he should be able to bring it back with him, but I'm assuming not.
Yeah, yeah, it's one of the more interesting points in history, or points of history that I find incredibly interesting is the fall of the Soviet Union and how all these different, you know, firearms, tanks, airplanes, submarines went onto the market.
Oh yeah. Honestly, yeah, that's actually super cool because I think even now there's places where you can buy like a Russian BMP from Soviet era when it collapsed for like 30 grand. And you have to I think you have to buy it in Europe and then transport it over here, so that's probably like another 30 grand. I don't know how much it costs to ship a boat or ship a tank over here, but that's always something. As soon as I get money, there's just going to be a parking lot full of Russian tanks in my yard.
Yeah. Well, this has been a meme I've been trying to make come to fruition with Bitcoin is that we need to stop pricing Bitcoin in dollars because it's a horrible measurement, and we need to start pricing it in F-15s.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, yeah. I think I feel like you can own an F-15 too. Maybe not an F-15. There's a couple jets you can actually own. I remember when Biden was saying like, "Oh, you guys don't have F-16s or nukes." Some people brought it like were showing proof like, "Oh yeah, no, you legitimately can buy an F-16." So fuck off, which I thought was pretty great.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking there will be a day though that we'll be able to own all of that stuff in the not
Hopefully,
the future.
it's what the Second Amendment was intended for. They could have privateers or yeah, those battleships back then. Should be able to have one now.
Yeah. So why do you think gun ownership is so important?
Well, I think honestly, it's just equality of arms. Like, if if nobody in the world had guns, that would be okay. But it's a problem when one group has guns and another group doesn't. Like, the inequality of arms is always going to be a problem when there's, or I should say, the disparity of force. Like, if one country is way more powerful than another one and the other one has resources, they're going to use that and take them over. I think the only way we can really have peace is for everybody to be like on equal footing with arms. And that goes with civilians and governments and governments, kind of like how the world has been way more peaceful since everybody has nukes. Nobody wants to go to war with each other. I mean, it's not one for one because, yeah, nukes have, yeah, never mind. But yeah, not one for one, but it's kind of the same thing where if, one group has something that the other group doesn't, they're probably going to use it. So it's pretty fundamental for I think our society and especially like minorities and other groups that the government doesn't really like. They should probably have guns, otherwise the government's gonna use their force against them. um, and I mean, historically, just in the past 100 years, there's been tons of cases of um, well, I think like Tulsa, like there was basically the government just tried to murder a bunch of black people in Tulsa, and they even used like the National Guard. I'm not sure if any of them had guns and fought back. I should actually read into that incident, but I'm guessing it would have been a lot better for them had they had full military arms, full access to everything that their aggressors had. Um, I mean, yeah, honestly, yeah, if Jews in the Holocaust had guns, there was like a couple war shit, I don't even remember, but there was one ghetto where the Jews actually fought back pretty successfully. Obviously, in the end, the Nazis took it over, but they definitely got some bodies before they went down. Which, I mean, if every Jew in the Holocaust had a gun, I think it would have gone a little bit better at least. But that's that's obviously, I don't know. You can't really say one way or another because it's history, but um, yeah, I mean, and honestly, actually, a more modern example of Myanmar, where the government or the military just took control of the government. They had a pretty much a rigged election. Military took over, and now there's rebels. Can't remember the name of their organization, but there's like a rebel group that's fighting back. Seems to be effectively. I haven't read into it much, but one thing of interest is I did see a Reddit post of somebody who said that they were manufacturing FGC-9s for the rebels in Myanmar. So I'm like, that's badass as hell. I never would have thought that 3D printed guns would go as far as being used in like an active conflict, rebels versus government type situation. I always kind of thought it was more of a like personal defend your house type situation. But that's amazing to see. So hopefully that works out for them. But I mean, obviously, without guns, they wouldn't have anything to fight with. So, and I think we can all agree that the military taking over a country isn't the best thing, and it's probably something to fight against. So, I mean, yeah, obviously, guns are important, and I think they'll continue to be for the rest of history.
Yeah, that's a great outline and some awesome examples. Yeah, I saw that FGC-9s in Myanmar as well, and that's pretty incredible. And I think one of the things that draws me towards the 3D gun printing community is how intertwined it is with this idea of freedom. And it's a very similar ethos to Bitcoin. Of when it like one of the amazing, like speaking of the FGC-9, one of the amazing legacies that Jay Stark has left is just this idea of trying to help individuals be able to attain the ability to protect themselves and arm themselves in places that are incredibly difficult to have guns. And that's something that I find, really noble about the 3D gun printing community is a lot of people will build guns in certain calibers that aren't necessarily as common in the United States to try and make it more likely for somebody, somewhere else with a crazy government to use it.
Yeah, I got into that argument with some idiot on Twitter yesterday who was saying, basically, he was like, "Oh, why everything you make you can buy at a gun store? Like, why do you need to print an AR lower receiver? I can just go to a gun store." And I kept bringing up caseless ammo to him, and he was like, he never responded. I'm like, yeah, you can't buy caseless electronically ignited caseless ammo at a gun store. He never really responded to that. But then beyond that, I'm like, this also isn't about the US, it's about the entire world. 95% of the world's population doesn't have access to a gun store. They have maybe a hardware store. And even that, like, even hardware stores are hard to come by in some countries that I visited, which is strange. But I mean, yeah, it's incredible people's mindsets of like, oh, 3D printed guns are just for the US, when in reality, I mean, the US has a guarantee, we have guaranteed right to bear arms. Um, but it's not, I mean, I don't think the US is would really be greatly benefited by 3D printed guns, if that makes sense. Like if there was a revolution, we already have enough guns. I mean the 3D printed ammo I think is important for stuff like that, but like um there yeah, I mean we already have enough guns. I really see 3D printed guns as a world issue and something for the rest of the world to bring guns to them. Um, just because I mean, on my wall, I've got like 10 guns behind me. I think I'm good to go without 3D printed guns. Unfortunately, like somebody in Germany, like J Stark, doesn't have that opportunity, and especially if they do manage to get a gun, they don't have any way to shoot it. They don't have any way to get ammo for it, and all that. So I really, and actually, I was thinking about this earlier. The connection to Bitcoin, where it's the same thing, like in places like Venezuela, where the currency is going up and down or even meaningless, how it kind of gives people a way to still do transactions or buy stuff online, um, and all of that. So it's kind of a similar thing where, the US, our currency, I mean, obviously it's inflating a shit ton, but it's not going up and down 2000% like some South American countries. So I think stuff like Bitcoin and 3D printing is really uh, there's it greatly improves people's way of life or like their freedom in other countries compared to the U.S. So yeah, I think it's way more important. Um, we're honestly in a good. I mean, we should still fight for as much freedom as we can here in the U.S., but we do have to keep in mind that there's a lot of other places that have absolutely no freedom that we should probably worry about too.
Yeah, yeah. What's different, I think, too, about 3D printed guns is that I mean, there's a lot of places around the world where people have had access to guns, like say Afghanistan, for example, when they were fighting the Soviets initially, and also when they were fighting the United States. And I think what's different is that the ability for an individual to make their own firearm allows for more self-governance versus outside meddling, because like if you look at the talent, like the different groups that the United States has armed, uh like the Taliban or ISIS, or the millions of different groups out there, it's oftentimes not representative of what the local population wants, and what it does is it creates a power imbalance, versus like individuals being able to stand on their own feet and say this is our community and this is what we want. So I think that's different, and it kind of I think we'll see it minimize the impacts of outside meddling of larger countries, for sure.
Mhm. Honestly, yeah, I feel like gun ownership is the only true democracy. It's the only way where as long as everybody in a country has the same arms, same access to guns. I mean, if there is something worth fighting about, I mean, the side with the more people that believe in it is going to win. I mean, it sounds bad because it'll lead to a lot of bloodshed, but in a way that is democracy. The side of the majority is going to win. Um, but yeah, it also gives, there's also, yeah, smaller groups than like in Afghanistan. I think everybody probably just wants to be their own like tribal unit. I don't think anybody really wants to be ruled by anybody, let alone the Taliban. So it definitely gives like, yeah, smaller tribes than um the ability to, yeah, fend off the Taliban and make it so they have to decide, oh, is us potentially dying worth it to just have another village under our control? Um, but yeah,
Yeah, it raises the price of tyranny.
yep, definitely. And yeah, actually, another thing I was thinking about was to the like primers. I think there's only like two or three companies that are allowed to make primers in the U.S. just because it's hazard. It's like a toxic material and it's a firearm, and there's just all these regulations. So I also feel like, particularly for like homemade ammo, it really reduces the bottleneck because any point the U.S. government can just shut down those businesses pretty much, and we won't have any primers or any ammo. Um, for yeah, so I think that's something to be worried about, and why decentralization is pretty important. Same with like Bitcoin, taking the power away from the Fed to just control everything.
Yeah. No, I think it's super good to be paranoid about things like that, because I think ultimately, like the gun control, if they were going to go out and like repeal the Second Amendment, or sorry, amend the Second Amendment, or do a blanket ban across the board, that wouldn't go over very well. But they do have the ability, and we've been watching this happen for years, where they go after ammo, in different ways, because if you don't have ammo, you're, like you alluded to earlier, your gun is essentially useless. And the fact that there's only two primer companies, like we've seen that be a major issue over the past year and a half.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, just in any, I mean, even with like semiconductors, like the shortage that we've been having recently with um, every semiconductor, basically, like it's just not a good idea to have only a couple companies that can make something. It's decentralized is pretty much the only way to avoid catastrophic supply shortages when shit goes south, like the pandemic, and yeah, just in general. It seems like a terrible idea to me, at least.
And that's something that's so cool about the 3D gun printing community too, is it's all around free and open source.
Mhm. Yeah. And just being easy to set up. Like the people in Myanmar were able to set up a factory making the FGC 9 barrels. I can't imagine that was somebody who had ever run a factory before. I'm sure it was just somebody who saw the need and set up a factory like in their garage, and completely possible to do. And I was even thinking like my ammo, I could probably, as long as I get like a CNC mold for it, I can probably just start casting bullets and selling them out of my bedroom essentially, because all you need to melt lead is a blowtorch. So I think yeah, making that's actually one of the things I'm working on, is trying to make everything just a lot easier to make. So it might not be the best, but I think it's really important for people to just be able to start manufacturing pretty much anywhere, um, for yeah, that exact reason.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. That's one of the reasons why I'm like, Atlas Arms is one of my favorite companies out there, is because of
Hmm.
the stance that you guys have taken around ammunition. One of the few people or groups out there doing anything about it.
Yeah, yep, exactly. And I mean, I feel like it doesn't really uh, impact like the bottom line for a company, like letting people, because like Atlas Arms is releasing all of the data. We're gonna let people make it themselves if they want. We're not trying to just like be an exclusive seller of it. But with that said, a lot of people just don't have time or the want for it, and so like 99% of people are probably just gonna buy it outright. Same with my gun. Like I'm starting the beta test now. It seems like not a lot of people really want to take the time to build it, but um, I mean, I could probably sell them. I need to figure out the legal issues with that first, but I'm definitely considering like selling kits and stuff, just because a lot of people don't have the time. So I think that's a really good business model, open source, because most people are lazy to be, or I shouldn't say lazy, they just have other stuff to do, you know. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, stuff you just said makes me think the ATF will come knocking on your door pretty soon.
Yeah. Yep. But I mean, honestly, there's nothing really like publishing the patent that's getting worked on for the Dagny Dagger, I believe should have all the information people will need to um, remake it. So that would be funny to see the ATF bust down the patent office's doors for publishing gun files or ammo files. But
That would be hilarious. Do you have a dog?
My roommate does. I'm a little bit worried about them.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, part of me kind of just wants to call up the local ATF office and just be like, "Hey guys, can we just like not kill me? And like, if you're gonna raid me, just knock on my door and I'll come out and like just have a gentleman's agreement to not kill each other." I feel like it sucks that that is something that might possibly be needed, but like I kind of just feel like telling like, "Hey guys, I'm not violent. You don't need to break down my door with an entire like APC. If you do, come and get me." Because I mean, honestly, it's definitely possible. I would say probably good 25% chance that at some point, even though I'm not absolutely not doing anything knowably, like I don't I'm not doing anything wrong to the best of my knowledge. And I I'm 99% sure a lawyer would agree with me, but obviously it's the fucking law and I'm not a lawyer. So I mean there is a chance that if they find anything, they'll probably just use it as an excuse to bust down my door. So it's definitely something I'm expecting, but I don't got anything illegal, so fuck them. It'll be kind of fun to be honest.
Yeah. Make
As
sure.
long as I don't go to jail. I'm kind of banking on Matt LaRosier being from Fudbusters, works with FPC too. Kind of just banking on him being a good enough lawyer to get me out of anything. He's not even technically my lawyer. I'm also kind of banking on me calling him from jail and hoping he has time to help me out, but
Yeah.
we'll see how it goes.
Make sure to get your roommate's dog a bulletproof vest or something.
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah. It's I think like the direction we're going in, I think we're all kind of weary of that being a possibility.
hmm I think they just raided Larry Vickers, that like special he was special forces, like a Green Beret. He had worked with Forgotten Weapons and he's pretty big in the gun community. I think they actually just raided him too because his permits lapsed for a couple months because they weren't renewing permits because of the pandemic. It was just a whole clusterfuck. But like shit, if they'll raid a ex Green Beret that like has written books and works with like the ATF, then yeah, we're probably all fucked unless the ATF makes a change. But
Yeah.
yeah,
That's insane.
yeah, yeah, that one really bothered me too. I don't know why, but like, dude, he's probably the most like upstanding citizen. Like, he trains law enforcement, um, so he's definitely like back the blue pro, sucking all the cops' dicks and stuff. So if sucking cops' dicks doesn't get you anywhere, get you out of an ATF agent busted down your door, I don't really know what will.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is like a major wake up call for a lot of people in the regard that like the state does not have our best interests in mind, and
Yeah,
they're more of an adversary than a friend or protector.
yeah, yep. Honestly, I would have thought people would understand that, especially on the left with like the Trump presidency and like the secret agents in like Portland kidnapping people. I don't even really know what the deal is with that, but I mean, yeah, they probably have secret agents just straight up kidnapping people. And the left saw that during Trump's presidency and we're like, no, 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 this is so terrible. The same shit's happening now, but it's just like, oh, Biden's got it under control. He's a good guy. He totally wouldn't do anything wrong. It's like, no, they're all doing something wrong.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah, I think part of it is people really struggle with principles. Um, and what what it comes down to is it takes a lot of courage to go out and defend somebody that you disagree with at the end of the day. Like, you know, it's I like say for example, like I believe really strongly in the importance of freedom of speech. Um, and it's difficult to go out there and defend groups like the Westboro Baptist Church,
yeah,
but it's incredibly vital, to have that mentality. And what it comes down to at the end of the day is there's a lot of people in our society that are just cowards, and they
mm,
have no no courage or principles whatsoever, and it's just weakness. It's,
Yeah. Honestly, I feel like, yeah, the government definitely has the trump card there, which is just pedophilia and child porn, which every time there's like they want to regulate the internet or something, they'll just be like, "Oh, but there's pedophiles and child porn on there. Are you in favor of child porn?" And you can't come out and be like, "Well, no, I just don't like the government controlling the internet." It's like if you disagree with them, you're automatically like a pedophile or into child porn. You can't really like defend the freedom um, of the internet without seeming like a terrible person when in reality you just don't want. I mean, yeah, the government says, "Oh, we're just going to watch, like, monitor everybody's internet to get the pedophiles." But then 2 years later, it's going to be monitoring the internet to make sure you're not saying bad stuff about the government. And then, it's just going to snowball from there. But it's really hard to come out and like at least seem like you're defending something like pedophilia or child porn, even though you're not. You're just defending like the security of the internet from government oversight or overreach. Um, but yeah, I've always thought that was kind of interesting. That I feel like at any point the government can do something like that with anything, um, and yeah, with enough psychological um, warfare, they can probably make like any group seem like a pedophile or child molester or something, and I mean, or something similarly egregious, and just make sure nobody can be on their side, which is definitely a dangerous thing.
yeah, I don't know, the government doesn't. I don't think they have the trump card anymore after the whole Jeffrey Epstein saga, because we all
Yeah, honestly, yeah, yeah. Actually, that is a good point. After all that, it's like, nah, you guys are the real pedophiles. Show us your internet history. Like, yeah,
I think,
that,
the problem, and actually one of the good things is like it's all about like the media uh kind of directing the public discourse around things. So like, very clear example of this is Ross Ulbricht in the way that he was vilified. And the general person, hears about the Silk Road and hears about Ross, and they're like, oh, this guy ordered hitmen, uh, which is not the case. They couldn't convict him in court. That was just a narrative that the media spread, and he
mm,
was sentenced based off of that, despite not being convicted of that. And the media has fallen apart at the seams and have no credibility anymore. And I think that's a major shift in power dynamics that I think is really good for us right now.
mm,
Um,
yeah. Honestly, yeah, there's way too much power in the media and shaping the narrative. Just the fact that people were called conspiracy theorists for the past year and a half for saying the virus probably came from a lab, whether intentional or not, like just saying, hey, maybe somebody forgot to wash their hands after fucking around with the coronavirus in a lab and then they went out to eat. Like, yeah, you can't even say that without seeming like a conspiracy theorist. But now there's, a lot of credible people are like, oh, well, maybe did come from a lab. And yeah, now kind of things are kind of changing a little bit, but it's really annoying that for like a year and a half, you were racist against China if you even considered that it came from a lab there. It's like, no, you have to be pretty smart to like fuck around with a coronavirus. I'm not insulting the Chinese. I think that there's one guy who honestly just forgot to wash his hands. And same thing with the U.S. government. I'm pretty sure Lyme's. I should say this is a conspiracy theory. I think I don't know, but apparently Lyme's disease came from like it started like 30 miles. Basically, the government had an island where they were doing animal testing and like all this crazy shit. And then like the closest place inland basically was like South Carolina or something, and that's where Lyme's disease started. So everybody's like, yeah, I mean, we probably did the same shit with that. Um, so it happens, but it's kind of, yeah. annoying either being called a racist or conspiracy theorist just for uh yeah, considering a possibility of something.
Yeah. I mean, the reality is the people calling us racist and conspiracy theorists are the racist and conspiracy theorists. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. I mean,
honestly, it's very true.
there's so many stories of that, and it's just kind of the theme of the conversation. Going back to the state cannot have a monopoly on violence. Like
Hmm.
when they do, it's unchecked power, and they can do whatever they want. Uh, Such as play around with viruses and like there's so many cases of this, the Dugway proving grounds up in Utah, where thousands of sheep died, where they're testing all sorts of crazy things, them mailing anthrax around to different people accidentally.
Hmm.
I mean, you just look at the entire Afghanistan war, the stuff that like Snowden um, or maybe that was Iraq, with the collateral murder video.
Yeah, I'm not too sure actually. Probably Iraq, but
But yeah, they're the maniacs,
mm,
and
yeah, yeah, it's insane. I mean, if just looking at the numbers historically, I mean, I honestly haven't, but like the number of people that governments have killed one way or another through negligence or direct violence, compared to like person on person violence, like murders, and gang wars and stuff, I would imagine governments by far kill way more people than any other like infighting, gang fighting, overdoses, or shooting. I don't know why I threw overdoses in there. Basically, yeah, non-natural causes of death. But um, yeah, I definitely don't trust the government to commit violence ethically. That's for sure. My neighbor never killed a family of Afghanis, so I probably trust him way more with a machine gun than the U.S. government. Same with a drone. I've I've never drone bombed a wedding in Afghanistan, um, and killed tens of kids and women and children or whatever. So honestly, I feel like I should be trusted more with a Predator drone than the U.S. government, considering I have a better track record of not killing innocent civilians. But I don't think they'd see it that way, unfortunately.
yeah, yeah. No, I mean, ultimately, like the state hates anything that empowers the individual, that makes them more difficult to control. That's just where the incentives lie, and
Yep, exactly.
so whatever way we can go about evening those power dynamics, uh, the better, for sure.
Mm, yep. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, kind of what's your outlook for 3D gun printing community, and where we're going in the future?
I think it's looking really good, honestly. I mean, not to toot my own horn, but I think caseless ammo that I'm working on, electronic and caseless ammo, is hopefully going to be a big part of it because, like I mentioned, the primers, only two companies making them. I have no idea how easy it is for other countries to get primers. So I think that's going to, um, hopefully, if other people use my design, will really increase the diversity of guns that we see. Because with the caseless ammo, you don't need an extractor. Um, and then with the electronics ignition, you don't really need a firing pin. You just need two probes that go into the back of the case. So it really simplifies a lot of things. So I'm hoping. Oh, and the the spark generator only costs about $3 on Amazon. I think it's $16 for a pack of five. So it's way cheaper than pretty much anything. And I think once I get the design out there and other engineers or gun designers start messing with it, there's a lot of really cool possibilities. Because I think ammo was honestly the big bottleneck, for 3D printed firearms, especially in other countries, and even the past year and a half, 2 years here in the U.S. So I think allowing people to home develop ammo is really important. Um, I know Ivan and Jay Stark did work on the but what about ammo using it was like nail gun blanks, I think. So they did kind of figure that out, but that also involves a supply chain of people, and I wouldn't be surprised if European governments started banning that. But honestly, I mean, my stuff's black powder powered right now. You can make black powder at home, uh, boiling pea, basically. So I don't think there's any way to stop that. Um, so hopefully we'll see some really cool stuff in the future. But beyond that, I think a lot of other people are getting really good at incorporating, or I should say, replacing metal parts with printed parts. I think slowly people are getting the hang of how to make really strong 3D printed parts. So hopefully we'll be seeing like stuff like 3D printed bolts and maybe even 3D printed barrels in the future. Although there is a fundamental limit with 3D printed barrels, but there's always stuff to you can work around it. So I'm very hopeful, honestly, and I think at the current rate, the 3D printing community is outpacing the gun industry with what people want and like speed and interesting stuff in general. So I'm really excited to see what comes out in the near future.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That's yeah. I mean, the traditional legacy gun community, I think, is failing pretty brutally right now.
hmm Honestly, I think the best thing that a lot of these gun companies could do right now is hire some of these 3D printed guys who obviously have an interest in guns and a creative mindset. They don't even need to be engineers, honestly. A lot of the people that have had really good ideas aren't engineers. They just have the ideas. And I mean, you probably do need somebody that can do the math eventually to make it a viable product, but you really don't need you don't need to know how to do calculus to make a gun really or anything like that. It's mostly creativity and understanding kind of how a gun works. um, so I honestly we would see a lot of really cool stuff if they just hired some of these designers to work for them and just kind of gave them even a small budget of like, here's 50,000 a year, bring me something cool eventually. You'd have some insane guns, I bet. But they'd rather just pump out Glock clones and yeah, pretty much just Glock clones and more Glock clones and maybe an AR, a slightly different AR that shaves like an ounce off, and it's the next big thing. I don't know. It's yeah, gun gun industry is really annoying to me right now. At some point, I'm gonna start shit posting just constantly to their Facebook pages once I know for sure that I've beaten them. I don't want to go too early, saying nah, I beat you, and then have my shit fail. But it's definitely coming.
Yeah, it'd be awesome to watch a bunch of people go after the NRA.
Yeah, I think they're a big part of it. I think uh, Austin's speech at one of the bear arms in Bitcoins was, yeah, basically how the NRA is funded by these big gun corporations that have no incentive to change. As long as these gun companies can still sell their bolt action rifles or their Glock clones to the public, they couldn't give two shits about gun rights. So that's kind of, I think, why the NRA is such a shitty corporation or such a shitty thing, is because all their funding is from Sig Sauer and Colt and all that. So they're not, yeah, not for the individual gun owners, that's for sure.
Yeah. Do you see the 3D gun printing community kind of forcing the legacy firearm organizations into free and open source in the future?
Um, I don't think so. I mean, it would be awesome. It would be really awesome to see, but I doubt it. I'm hoping. I think best we could maybe hope for is a little bit more creativity and new stuff from the gun companies. Hopefully, at the very least, like if somebody from like Sig Sauer is looking at my projects or something and saying, "Oh, caseless ammo is possible. Maybe we should check this out." Um, I think that might be the best that we can hope for is just them seeing something cool in the 3D printed community and trying to copy it a little bit better. Um, but I mean, to be really optimistic, it is possible. They if they see how you can still keep a customer base, still sell stuff while being open source, it is possible. Maybe this next generation of gun designers will start their own companies or whatever too, and keep that model. I think probably the best best course of action would be all these shitty gun companies just going out of business and being replaced by new companies run by like millennials, basically 20 and 30-year-olds instead of 70-year-old men who can't conceive of anything besides a bolt action rifle.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the business model that you talked about Atlas Arms pursuing, where they're open sourcing, you guys are going to be open sourcing things and then selling it to people out of convenience. I mean, I just look at like if these, like, I mean, I can't imagine how many Glock 17s have been sold or pieces to Glock 17 since the lower came out, and I just feel like if they started open sourcing things like that, their sales would be absolutely ridiculous, and they could focus more on just barrels and parts and slides rather than.
Yeah, definitely. Even, but what's surprising about that is even companies like High Point, where Ivan the Troll made a lot of designs, or no, it wasn't. Shit, I'm blanking on his name. I wish I could give him credit. I think it might be Freeman Don't Ask, FMDA. I don't know. But a really talented gun designer has worked on the High Point, and they made it the Low Point printed receiver. And that's a really popular build because a lot of the parts kits are like sub $100 for those High Points. But High Point is they've I think Control Pew and a couple people have reached out to High Point to try to get them to actually just sell the parts, and they completely I think either ignored them or refused. So it's like there's this really big business opportunity for them to just crank out slides and barrels and make a shit ton of money. Probably a way better markup than their actual guns because they don't have to pay people to assemble them. And they're still not doing it. So I don't really know what the hangup is. If it's like a ethical issue for them or if they're just idiots. I can't even begin to speculate. But yeah,
Yeah, there's got to be like some compliance issues potentially because the regulatory environment is just so insane and uncertain.
yeah, I'm guessing. Yeah, probably they just don't want to be associated with like ghost guns or the next Saturday night special. But high points are already banned in like Minnesota because of their melting point. I think the metal is too the melting point of the metal is too low. And so they said for some reason that makes it an unsafe gun, which it's totally just to keep it out of poor people's hands because they're cheap guns that everybody was using. And they're cheap guns, they're showing up in crimes, and then now it's a criminal weapon. Better ban them. It's like no, if criminals are just going to use the cheapest thing that they can find, then you're just going to keep moving up the ladder of the next cheapest thing until you're trying to ban $10,000 rifles because they're too cheap or too cheap and easy to get. But yeah, that's something that really annoys me too.
Yeah, high points have always, at least in the circles I've watched, have always or walked in are a total meme for shitty.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, but I mean they work. They're not the greatest guns, but apparently they'll shoot. I definitely don't own one, but I like the concept of cheap available arms, so I'm definitely pro high point.
Sure. Yeah, it's shifted my opinion on it as well.
Hmm.
That was something that was hilarious. Like the first time I looked on I think it was DefCAD and saw all the um, high point stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that was an interesting project. It's also a perfect name, calling it the low point.
Yep. So what's got you optimistic on the future?
Um, I'm thinking. I honestly, I'm really enthusiastic with how many people are into 3D printing, especially across the world. I so like, there's been a couple people. I specified that people had to be in the U.S. to be in my beta testing channel, and I gotten a few messages in very broken English, like, "Yes, please. Can I please join your beta, please? I would like to test, please." It's like, all right, that's too many pleases for an American. Sorry, bro. Like, I'm all for your right to bear arms, but you're not going to be able to do much meaningful testing for me, in a country where you're not really allowed to. This kind of involves going out to a public shooting range and, like, testing it and stuff. It's also probably harder for them to get a lot of the materials before I really have a good, like, set. This is where you go and get it. A lot of it's just go to Home Depot and find some nails. Um, so, but that, I mean, I feel bad saying no to them, but I am very glad that there are people in other countries taking an interest in it and even wanting to test stuff. But yeah, so that's definitely got me hopeful. Just the amount of people. Hopefully, I'm hoping the one good thing to come out of Jay Stark's death is the publicity around it. I think a lot more people have now heard of the FGC9, and so hopefully that grows our community, and empowers other developers maybe to take his place, and try to fill in the void of gun designers. I think a lot of people are definitely capable of doing it. So um, yeah, I think honestly just the message getting out, and yeah, is really good. Personally, I'm optimistic for my projects, obviously, but there's a lot of other stuff in the gun community. Unfortunately, I haven't been looking into too much what other people are doing, just because I've been focused mostly on my own projects. But I've definitely heard of some really cool stuff, and a lot of people messaging me saying that they're working on their own, like, electrical ignition or caseless ammo, um, and they're just kind of wondering what I'm using. So I'm super happy to hear about other people doing stuff, even if they're not posting about it on Twitter. Just kind of makes me happy that there's people working in silence in their basements and garages on this.
Nice. Yeah. What are like some good practices as far as like OPSEC and not getting caught by the feds or spooks?
Yeah. So I definitely don't follow it. But I would say, like, not posting your face or anything, which I kind of stopped giving a shit about. Just because I don't know. At some point, once you're, like, big enough, I stopped using a VPN, and then after about a month of not using a VPN, I'm just like, oh fuck, they got me. They know who I am and where I am. So I slipped up there, and I'm like, yeah, whatever, let's go public. Mostly because Jeff Rodriguez from the Liberator 12K project, he's been posting his face and full name for a while. I'm still keeping my name a little bit secret. Obviously the FBI and ATF already knows exactly who I am, but mostly just to keep, like, the moms demand actions types out of my yard. Um, but I would say for other people, especially if you're in a different country, using a VPN and storing any, like, 3D printed files, not on a hard drive, but in, like, on an SD card or something that you can hide or break. Um, and yeah, not posting your face. Also, one interesting thing that I've come across is, like, I can't remember what it's called, but yeah, don't post any pictures too of, like, backgrounds of stuff, because people can identify, like, exactly where you are just by the scenery. Um, in terms of designing stuff, I'm not really too sure. I'm also not too sure on the laws about um, like distributing 3D printed files, because I know that there was a lot of shit going on like a year or two ago. I feel like it's, well, yeah, actually, honestly, the only reason I'm pretty sure it's legal is that I know people who have their names, like the ATF definitely knows of some people who have posted gun files and they're still walking around and haven't had any issues from the ATF. So I'm assuming it's completely legal to post the files as long as you're a U.S. citizen. Um, but yeah, that's still one thing I'm not too sure on.
Gotcha. Yeah, I know San Diego is trying to ban 3D printing guns. So
Ooh, yeah, that's yeah, I know a couple states are trying to do that individually.
I think New Jersey might be the only one thus far.
Yeah, I actually wouldn't be surprised if New Jersey could arrest me. Actually, shit, I better keep that in mind, not to go to New Jersey, because I wouldn't be surprised if their state people could prosecute me. But good. I don't like New Jersey anyway. Good excuse not to go there.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fortunate thing about most of these states that are so anti-freedom, they're states that probably aren't worth going to for the most part.
Yeah. Yep. Honestly.
There's some nice parts about California, but
Yeah, I was gonna say I do like the scenery and stuff in California, but the laws just make it. Yeah, no point in going there now.
yeah, that's going to be an interesting thing where the individual states will also be problematic, not just the feds.
Yeah. Yep. Definitely.
Yeah, well, stoked to chat with you. Hoping to make it up in Flagstaff eventually.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah, definitely hit me up if you're in town. Be happy to meet a lot of people or more people in Arizona, because yeah, right now it's essentially just me and Austin up here hanging out, and yeah, hopefully I can try to recruit some more engineers in my classes to get into this 3D gun printing stuff. Um, but yeah, definitely glad to talk to you about it. I love explaining my projects and philosophies on stuff. So
Yeah, where can people follow you and what you're doing?
yeah, so mainly on Twitter, probably. I'm at Suckboy Tony 1 on Twitter and Suckboy Tony 2 on Instagram. Let me just double check. I think I got beaten out there. Yeah, Suckboy Tony 2 on Instagram. Not sure who got the first name. And then Rocket, if you if anybody wants to help me testing with the plasma musket beta or any of this caseless ammo stuff, message me on Rocket Chat or just message me on Twitter. We can figure it out, but I'm doing the beta on Rocket Chat. So yeah, I would say Twitter's probably the best place just to get updated though on what I'm doing. So
You'll post when you go to Nigeria on there.
yep, exactly. I did say I have just enough money for a one-way plane ticket, so I think it would be fun to go there and then try to crowdsource from Nigerians money to get back. I don't know if my gunsmithing skills are up to par enough to make money, but fuck it, that might be a kind of a fun adventure to post on YouTube or something. But
Well, there's a lot of Bitcoin floating around in Nigeria, so
oh shit, yeah, good point. Maybe just hit up one of those Bitcoin Nigerian millionaires.
yeah. Well, cool. Well, thanks for coming on, Tony.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that conversation with Suckboy Tony. Really appreciate the stuff he's doing, and I think it's huge. I think this movement is big. It's progressed incredibly quickly and will continue to, despite whether it's legal or not. A lot of these people put themselves on the line in this community. You know, Jay Stark just recently got in the crosshairs of the state and ended up dead. We don't really know the details about it, but it's kind of a tragic situation. But ultimately, you know, these people really believe in what they're doing and, you know, are going to continue to pursue it. And I admired that in a lot of ways. I think freedom is worth dying for, and it is something worth pursuing at all costs. And we're just watching progressively as there's a lot of people in positions of power that really hate freedom, and I think they're doing a bad job of implementing their end goal. But that being said, there's still a fight in front of us, and looking for tools like 3D gun printing, like Bitcoin, using it privately are incredibly important. And I'm pretty stoked. We have the guys from Samurai coming out to do a presentation up at the Phoenix Meetup in November. Check it out on our Meetup page, the Arizona Bitcoin Network. But yeah, if that's something that you're interested in, make sure to check it out. Bitcoin privacy is incredibly important, especially right now as we're watching just the insanity of what the government's doing as the money's failing. They're going to try and extract as much as they can, and the unrealized capital gains, I think, are just the tip of the iceberg. We're going to see all sorts of nutty things like a carbon tax, maybe a consumption tax. They call it a VAT tax. They're going to try and extract as much as they can from you, and they already have with inflation. People are really getting hit hard, and it's time to use tools to protect yourself from what's coming and all the crazy stuff as it accelerates going forward in the future. But yeah, thanks for watching this conversation or listening, and have a good one.